Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Mr. Riderola with another outlining guided reading to help you out. This one on causes of the American Revolution. This is uniting the colonies. And this guided reading and outlining support will be for Crisis in Boston, starting on page 117. Okay, you can use this to kind of help you guide through the outlining process if you find the summary process difficult. Obviously, if you don't feel like you need this anymore and you can do it on your own, you're welcome to, but you can always fall back and check your outline by watching this video. Right away, I'm going to get into my during and after reading strategies. Okay, I always show these. You're going to make connections as you read. Of course, we're going to have to interact with the text here. That's going to be important because we need main ideas and supporting details to complete an outline, to summarize. So we're going to do that as we go along. And we're going to clarify understanding by using pictures and captions in the text itself. Okay, so that's the during reading strategies. How about our after reading strategies? Here we're going to mostly recall. That's what we're doing here. We're going to summarize the selection in writing. We will respond and evaluate later on using questions and a document response activity. So we will use all these strategies, but as of right now, we're going to focus on the recall strategy. And then finally, remember to use that delete, substitute, keep strategy. Delete some information you really don't need to write down. Substitute or move things around when necessary or to keep the clarification for you, and keep the most important information: names, dates, events, policies, right? Things like that. And of course, we're using the outlining format. So we'll get right into it. Once again, we did leave off with the tensions on the streets and the spreading the news of the Boston Massacre. And as you can see here, people died. This was not a good event. This was a shedding of blood on the streets of Boston. There had been killings. There were 5 colonists killed in the Boston Massacre, and as you can guess, the people of Boston are not happy. They're equally upset when later on these same soldiers are not found guilty of murder. There's some manslaughter charges, but there's not murder charges. No one is executed for this, and as you can probably guess, the colonists in Boston are very displeased. So that's what we're picking up with Crisis in Boston. Okay, so we'll get into the reading. We'll jump right into it here. We're on the bottom of 117. You will notice if you turn the page, this goes to 118. So this is a long paragraph, followed by a short paragraph, and that wraps up the subtopic. So, hey, let's move on here. Keep in mind, we are on Roman numeral 2, Crisis in Boston, because these are the first paragraphs for a new topic. We're going to call this subtopic A intro. We always do that when we start a new topic and there's no subtopic underneath. Sometimes there's one there, but it's rare. You'll call that A intro. So let's get into the intro, and I'll start reading. The British East India Company was vital to the British economy. Colonial refusal to import British East India tea had nearly driven the company out of business. To help save the company and protect the British economy, Parliament passed the Tea Act. It gave the company nearly total control of the market for tea in the colonies. The Tea Act also removed some, but not all, of the taxes on tea, making it less expensive for the colonists. Yet the colonists remained angry. They did not want to pay the tax, and they did not want to be told what tea they could buy. And I'll tell you, now, personal connection to this right away, I'm thinking mercantilism. Remember that old term mercantilism, where a mother country dominates the markets of its colonies. This is classic textbook mercantilism. It's a way to kind of get tax money out of the colonies and get them to support British businesses by not giving them a choice except to do so. And that's what's going on here. So that came to my mind right away. How about the summary? What does that look like? There's a lot in this paragraph. It's long, so I actually had an A, B, C, D, E. British East India Company. I could have said East India Co. Vital to Brits' economy. Colonies refused to buy tea, driving company out of business. Parliament tried to save, passes Tea Act. Gave total control of tea market to company. Removed some, not all, taxes from tea, but colonists still angry. Probably the closest thing to I have for a sentence for these last two. Did not want tax or told who to buy tea from. Again, your summary does not it could be a caveman talk, and you notice I'm doing that here. Okay, so I did have an A, B, C, D, E here. And I could kind of get an idea what's going on here, right? British East India Company is important to the British economy. Colonies aren't buying their tea, so they're going out of business. So Parliament passes the Tea Act, still telling those colonies what to do, right? Gave them total control of the tea market in the colonies. Removed some, not all, taxes from tea, but colonists still angry. Did not want to be taxed or told who to buy tea from. And we can say that in the colonies, that's absolutely true. Okay, so there's A1. There's our first paragraph. Let's move on to the next paragraph, a little shorter. Colonial merchants called for a new boycott. Colonists vowed to stop the East India Company's ships from unloading. The Daughters of Liberty issued a pamphlet declaring that rather than part with their freedom, we'll part with our tea. There's those Daughters of Freedom again stepping up, right? And another boycott. How about that? And the last one was kind of successful. Let's see how this one goes. Okay, so colonial merchants want new colonial merchants want new boycott. Stop East India Company. Stop ships from unloading tea. Daughters of Liberty declare we'll part with tea before freedom. I kind of reworded that. Okay, now if you're looking at this, keep in mind if I'm going too fast, hit the pause button, get what you need, then move on. That's a smart way to use this presentation. And I'll give you a second to consider that before we move on. We are on page 118, a tea party. A tea party. Interesting. Watch what I do here. That's one paragraph. Watch what happens with the summary. So I'm going to start reading this. And right away I make a connection. I'm looking on page 118 and I see that there's a caption. Colonists angry at restrictions of the Tea Act staged dramatic protest. They threw 3 shiploads of British tea into Boston Harbor. So the book is making a big deal about this tea party. So this must be a pivotal event. This must be one of those crisis events that really changes things in the colony. Something to keep in mind. So I'll start reading. It's again about middle of page 118 toward the bottom, a tea party. Despite warnings of trouble, the East India Company continued shipping tea to the colonies. Colonists in New York and Philadelphia forced the tea ships to turn back. In 1773, 3 ships loaded with tea arrived in Boston Harbor. The royal governor ordered that they be unloaded. He wanted them unloaded. The Boston Sons of Liberty acted swiftly. At midnight on December 16th, colonists dressed as Native Americans boarded the ships and threw 342 chests of tea overboard. As word of the Boston Tea Party spread, colonists gathered to celebrate the bold act. Yet no one spoke out against British rule itself. Most colonials still saw themselves as loyal British citizens. Hey, so despite all that, they're still seeing themselves as loyal British citizens. How about that? There's much to be said of that. So now we're seeing vandalism. I mean, personal connection here. This is vandalism. This is destroying property, right? The British ain't going to like this. I mean, that's what's coming to my mind, right? And I kind of see this maybe as revenge for what happened at the Boston Massacre, that nobody was hurt. Sometimes I view this Boston Tea Party like that. It's kind of like a revenge mode, kind of way to get back at the British without actually hurting anybody specifically, but throwing millions of dollars of tea into the water, that'll do it. One paragraph here. So this goes from 118 to 119. We're already at the top of 119, and that's the last page for this section, right? So Boston Tea Party, right? A tea party. Despite warnings, still ship tea to colonies. Notice what I did there. NY and Philly, New York and Philadelphia. 4 ships back. 1773. 3 ships arrive in Boston. Remember, with notes, you can use numbers. You can use this abbreviations for the cities. Okay. Royal Governor ordered unload. Sons of Liberty acted. I took a lot of stuff and simplified it there. December 16th, dressed as native AMs, threw 342 chests of tea overboard. I thought that number was an important thing. It's like an important fact here, so I actually made sure I got that number. Called Boston Tea Party. News spread. Celebrated. People celebrated this. Do not speak out against Brit rule. Many still loyal British. So I didn't say British. I said Brit citizens. So I kept that really simple. And once again, if I'm going too fast here, pause. Look at what I wrote here. Okay. Notice something I did here. There's only numbers. And again, usually when you have a number, that's a topic sentence of a paragraph. But if everybody takes a quick look, You're going to notice the Tea Party is just one paragraph. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'll pause here again, review this, and then we'll move on. Page 119 has the intolerable acts. This is where the heat really gets turned up. If that oven was on 150 or 200 at the beginning of this lesson, it's on 350 at the end of it. Okay, now things are getting ugly. And the British don't take well to having their property destroyed, as you can probably guess. So let's see what happens next. So again, intolerable acts. I'm on page 119, about 90, just right at the top of the page there on 119. When news of the Boston Tea Party reached London, King George III realized that Britain was losing control of the colonies. He declared we must either master them or totally leave them to themselves. Wow. Okay, a lot going on there, right? That's a short one, though. So, what did I get out of that, right? This is C, the intolerable acts. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, there's 5 paragraphs here. Holy cow. Okay, this is a pretty long one. First paragraph. News of Tea, I just said news of Tea Party, but news of Tea Party works. Reaches London. King George III demands control. Notice I kind of summarized what he said there. Must master colonies or leave them. I kind of reworded that. It's a little shorter. Done. That's a nice short paragraph. Those are the ones we like. Those 1AB ones are great. Okay, now the next paragraph is a little more detailed. In 1774, Parliament responded by passing a series of laws called the Coercive Acts. That don't sound good. Coercive means to force someone to do something. These laws were meant to punish the colonists for resisting British authority. One coercive act applied to all the colonies. The Quartering Act of 1774 forced the colonies to allow British soldiers to live among colonists rather within their communities in empty houses, barns, or other buildings. How about that, right? However, Massachusetts received the harshest treatment from Britain. Okay, so I can see some of the laws there already, right? And whoa, are they stepping it up? Now, from what I remember, personal connection, the Bill of Rights, the English Bill of Rights, had a law stipulating against allowing soldiers to quarter in people's homes. And I remember that. So this Quartering Act is a complete violation of the English Bill of Rights. So not only have we seen now them defy the Magna Carta, the British defy the Magna Carta. Now, when it comes to the colonies, they're willing to defy the Bill of Rights too. So yeah, this is getting pretty ugly, right? So what's important in this one? 1774, Parliament passes coercive acts, means to force. That's what coercion means, to force people to do things. Punish colonists for resisting, one applied to all colonies. Force colonists to allow soldiers to live with colonists. Massachusetts received harshest treatment, and we really haven't gotten into that. Okay, so once again, these are the next 2 paragraphs. We're only down to 3 more, and we're done. So if you need to stop here and review and go over this and pause it, feel free. I'm going to count to 5, and I'm going to move on to the next paragraph. I did this one just as one shot. So this is the 3rd paragraph. One of the coercive acts banned town meetings in Massachusetts. Another closed Boston Harbor until the colonists paid for the ruined tea. This stopped most shipments of food and other supplies to the colony. Parliament was trying to cut Massachusetts off from other colonies. Instead, the coercive acts drew the colonies together. Other colonies sent food and clothing to support Boston. Whoa. First of all, we know the importance of town meetings, and especially in New England. We talked about that. They're banned. Okay. Boston Harbor is closed. So you have what's basically an embargo where you can't bring goods in or ship them out from the harbor, right? This is pretty heavy stuff, right? They were trying to isolate Massachusetts. It kind of backfires on, again, and that's what this whole section is about, uniting the colonists. Everything the British do backfires. It unites these people more instead of driving them apart, which is pretty cool. I mean, you got to consider that the colonies stuck together on this. They didn't let Britain divide them. So, again, paragraph 3, one act banned town meetings in Massachusetts. Another closed Boston Harbor until colonists paid for tea. That was the deal. Food shipment supplies stopped. Brits cut off Massachusetts. Big, I don't want to say it that way. But, however, right, united the colonies, sent food and supplies to Boston. Okay, so the other colonies stepped it up. They're going to help out Massachusetts. That must have irked back in Parliament, that they were willing to help each other out. Okay, so that must have killed them back in Britain, so that these colonies were working together. Okay, hey, doing pretty good. That's our third paragraph. We only have two more to go. And I'll move on to that. Once again, if you feel the need to pause here, pause here. I'm going to count to three and move on. I did put the Quebec Act up here, and I'll show you why in a minute. Let's take a look at this. So these are our last two paragraphs on the bottom of 119. I see there's a picture of King George there. Again, notice I'm using those during reading strategies, clarifying understanding. King George's determination to take a firm stand against the colonies after the Boston Tea Party failed to resolve the growing crisis. In fact, colonial anger grew. This is just fuel on the fire for revolution at this point. And you're going to find out why in a minute. Because now they're going to do something that's just over the line for the colonists. Following the Coercive Acts, Parliament also passed the Quebec Act. This law created a government for Canada and extended its territory south all the way to the Ohio River. This action ignored the colonies' claims to that region. Holy mackerel. If we thought the proclamation, look how the proclamation and the lands out west are such a vital part of this whole issue. The proclamation kept colonists from going out there. Some still were, believe it or not. This law said that land was now part of Canada, and any claims that the colonists would ever have to them are extinguished completely. This would no longer be land for them to even consider. It's part of Canada. This is the Quebec Act. Now, some of the other acts actually focused on Massachusetts. This one affects all the colonies. So with this one act, the British drive the colonies together, which is pretty amazing. I mean, how did I summarize this? Quebec Act also passed. Create Canadian government, extend territory to Ohio River, ignored colonist claims. I kept it, claims to region. I kept this really short. It wasn't a real long paragraph, so this is perfect. But man, just look at this one law. If the proclamation of 1763 was a kick in the teeth, this was on top of that a broken nose and a broken jaw. It was like really getting hit that bad, and this drives the colonies together. I can't even go into. I can't reinforce how important this law was to driving all the colonies together. Okay, they saw us as one united force against them, and they acted like we were one united force, and in doing so, drove us together as a united force, which is pretty stupid. Okay, so the Quebec Act, it's a real kick. How about this last paragraph? The colonists believed all these new laws violated their rights as English citizens. Duh. They expressed their feelings about the laws by calling them the intolerable acts. Intolerable means painful and unbearable. So, as far as the colonists are concerned, this was a crossing of a line. The new law violated English rights, and we've seen this all along. We've seen this Magna Carta and English Bill of Rights are being defied right along the line, all the time. They called these laws the intolerable acts, means painful or unbearable. Now, this ends this note-taking session. We're good. The outline's done. Something to keep in mind when you're looking at this. If we didn't solve anything in the last lesson, there's certainly nothing solved here. We've seen the heat get turned up. It's gone from like 150, 200 to 350 real fast, hasn't it? This has gotten uglier. So we're just waiting for a spark. And something's going to catch on fire, right? I mean, it's only a matter of time. If I was to use an analogy or if you like a metaphor, something's going to start burning because this is just getting way too hot in here. The heat's on in the kitchen. That kitchen is way too hot, right? In the kitchen that hot, you're going to have a fire. And we're just waiting for the spark. And that spark will come in the next section. We will look at this. It's going to happen very quickly. So we'll see what that is. Just as a quick overview, if you'd like to take a look, these are the actual acts that passed. And again, if you look down the list, you can see how they all violate the Magna Carta or Bill of Rights, or even just violate simple trade laws and rights to trade, right? The Boston Port Act closed the port of Boston until Boston agreed to pay the East India Company for, or for the Dartmouth cargo for the tea. Boston could not import any foreign goods or export to other nations. Look at this, the Massachusetts Government Act. Members of the legislature were to be appointed by the king instead of popularly elected. They were taking away their representatives. Revoked the Massachusetts Charter of 1691, ended town meetings, for which the governor had not given any permission. So, shutting down all public discussion. The Administration of Justice Act is an interesting one. This one kind of relates back to the Boston Massacre. No royal official committing a capital offense could be tried in Massachusetts. They didn't have to be tried by jury here. If an official did something in America, they had to go back to Britain to be tried. It would allow soldiers to get away with violence against citizens and not be tried for that violence. So you can see how that's going to lead to a lot of problems. The Quartering Act, obvious, right? This is a violation of the Bill of Rights. Colonists must provide food and housing for British soldiers on demand, and it robs citizens of the right to privacy and security in their own homes. Your home is supposed to be your castle, not according to the Quartering Act. And finally, that Quebec Act, and this is passed later in 1774, changed the system of government for Canada, disbanded representative assemblies, and revoked the right to trial by jury in Canadian government lands. That's a complete violation of the Magna Carta. Suggested to the colonists that their own assemblies would soon be disbanded and their rights revoked. They saw the writing on the wall. Not only were they going to lose access to those Western lands, soon the British are going to come down and take away their representative bodies too. And those were so critical to all the colonies. They loved them too much. And this is where we're going to leave off before we begin a call to arms. And man, if you turn the page, look at 120, you can see what's coming. Because I'll bet the Revolutionary War starts in that next section. Even though we're not into that unit yet, I bet that's where it's going to start. So, hey, thank you very much. I hope this helped a little, help you understand things. If you have any questions, let me know. And hey, have a nice day.